The desert stretched endless under a blazing sun, a cruel master that neither forgave nor forgot. Heat waves shimmered above the hardpan trails, twisting the horizon into false rivers, promising water that never came. A buzzard wheeled high, tracing lazy circles as if it knew the land itself might soon claim another wary soul. Eli Mercer rode through that wasteland with a horse near as stubborn as the man himself. Dust clung to his boots, to his hat brim, to the sweat-stained collar of his faded shirt. He'd been drifting for months, long enough to know the smell of dying land, the silence that pressed down on a man until his own heartbeat sounded louder than thunder. The war had ended years back, but for Eli, peace had never come. He carried ghosts in his eyes and the ache of loss in his bones. Work was scarce, land scarcer still. He'd heard about a government auction in a town called Dry Creek, where abandoned cabins went for pennies on the dollar. It wasn't much of a dream, but it was something a man could hold, instead of watching the world pass him by. And so, with the last silver $50 in his pocket, Eli Mercer rode into Dry Creek. Dry Creek wasn't much of a town, just a scattering of buildings along a single, rutted street. A livery, a general store with peeling paint, a weathered saloon leaning like it might fall over in the next dust storm. A sheriff's office with a crooked star nailed above the door. The air smelled of horses, cheap whiskey, and desperation. Eli tied his horse to the hitching post outside the saloon and stepped inside. The room was dim, smoke curling from pipes and cigars, the floor sticky with spilled beer. A piano sat in the corner, though no one bothered playing it. Men with hollow eyes and sunburnt skin hunched over their drinks, gambling away what little they had left. Behind the bar stood a woman with a hard face but soft eyes, polishing a glass that would never truly shine. She looked Eli over as he entered, her gaze sharp as a hawk's. "You're new," she said. "Just passing through," Eli replied, though he knew it wasn't the truth. Passing through meant a man had somewhere to go. He didn't. "You'll want the sheriff's office," she said, jerking her chin toward the window. "Auction's starting soon. Folks been buzzing about it all week. Though truth be told, most of them cabins are fit for coyotes and rattlers, not men." Eli gave her a nod of thanks, tipped his hat, and stepped back into the sun. The auction, the sheriff, was a big man with a walrus mustache and eyes that had seen too much. His name was Sheriff Jed Calloway, and his voice carried like thunder as he stood on the wooden steps outside his office. "All right, folks. We're here to settle up these abandoned properties. Rules are simple, highest bidder takes it. No refunds, no complaints. You want a roof over your head, you pay your coin, and you take your chances." One by one, parcels were called. Scraps of land, shacks, crumbling barns. Some went for $1, some for a handful of nickels. Eli stood at the back of the crowd waiting. Then the sheriff unrolled another sheet of paper. Lot number 17. Cabin, 4 miles north of Dry Creek, near Blackthorn Ridge. Starting bid 25 cents. The crowd shifted uneasily. Murmurs spread like wildfire. A man near Eli spat tobacco into the dirt. "No one's fool enough to buy that place," he muttered. Eli's ears perked. "Why's that?" The man gave him a sidelong glance. "That cabin's cursed, stranger. Belonged to old Cyrus Harlan. Fella disappeared 10 years back. Some say he went mad. Others say he dug up something he shouldn't have. Either way, no one's set foot there since. Not unless they got a death wish." The sheriff's voice boomed again. "Do I hear 25 cents? Silence." The crowd looked away, boots scuffing in the dust. Eli felt the coin in his pocket, heavy as an anvil. 25 cents. His last chance at land, at roots, at something that belonged to him. He thought of the war, of the drifting, of empty nights under colder skies than this. He raised his hand. "I'll take it." The crowd turned, whispers hissing like rattlesnakes. The sheriff's eyes narrowed, but he gave a single nod. "Sold." To the drifter, "Cabin at Blackthorn Ridge. Yours for 25 cents. The coin left Eli's hand, and with it, the last of his fortune. But for the first time in years, he owned something. What he didn't know, what no one would tell him, was that he had also bought a secret no man dared to face. The cabin, the trail to Blackthorn Ridge, was rough, winding through gullies and rock formations that looked like bones of the earth. The sun blood red as it sank behind jagged peaks, shadows crawling across the desert floor. By the time Eli reached the cabin, Night had settled in. The place stood crooked against the ridge, its logs weathered gray, roof sagging under years of neglect. The door hung slightly ajar, creaking with the wind. Eli dismounted, tied his horse, and stepped closer. The air here felt different, thicker somehow, heavy with a silence that pressed against his chest. He pushed the door open. Inside, the cabin smelled of rot and dust. A table lay overturned, chairs splintered. Cobwebs draped the corners like funeral veils. In the far wall, a blackened fireplace gaped like a mouth, cold and lifeless. But it wasn't the ruin that caught his eye. It was the trunk. An iron-bound chest sat in the center of the floor, half buried under dust, its lock rusted but intact. Strange markings had been carved into the wood, symbols Eli didn't recognize. Circles within circles, jagged lines that seemed to twist if he stared too long. The hair on his neck prickled. He knelt, touched the chest. The wood was cold, too cold for the desert night. His hand lingered, and for a moment he thought he felt something shift beneath the surface. A voice in his head whispered, "Don't open it." But another voice, louder and sharper, said, "It's yours now." He stood, jaw set. He'd lived too long on scraps, on shadows. Whatever secret this cabin held, it was his to uncover. Still, he left the chest where it was. Tonight, he would rest. Tomorrow, he'd decide. Trouble in town. Morning found Eli back in Dry Creek. He needed supplies. Flour, beans, coffee. Maybe a lantern, since the cabin's single window let in little light. Inside the general store, he caught the wary stares of the townsfolk. Men whispered behind their hands. Women pulled their children close. At the counter, the storekeeper, a thin man with spectacles, cleared his throat nervously. "You're the one bought the Harlan place." "That's right," Eli said evenly. The man's Adam's apple bobbed. "Don't take this wrong, mister, but you best leave it be. Ain't nothing good comes from that cabin." Eli's jaw tightened. "I paid for it. It's mine now." The storekeeper lowered his voice. Cyrus Harlan wasn't right in the head. Folks said he was digging for gold, but he found something else. After that, he changed. Started scribbling symbols, muttering about doors that shouldn't be opened. Then one night, he vanished, left only that trunk behind. Anyone who tried to open it, he trailed off, eyes darting to the window. "What happened?" Eli pressed. The man shook his head. "Just don't. That's all I'll say." Eli gathered his supplies, paid with the last of his loose change, and stepped out into the sunlight. Across the street, the sheriff leaned against a post, watching him with eyes that gave nothing away. Eli tipped his hat. The sheriff didn't move. Something in this town was coiled tight, like a rattler ready to strike, and Eli had just put his boot too close. The stranger that night, back at the cabin, Eli built a fire in the hearth. Shadows danced across the walls, flickering over the iron-bound chest. He sat with his rifle propped against the table, listening to the night sounds. Coyotes yipping in the distance, the wind whistling through the craps. Then he heard it. A knock. 3 sharp raps at the door. Eli's hand went to his gun. Slowly he rose, crossed the room, and pulled the door open. A man stood outside, tall and gaunt, his face hidden beneath the brim of a wide hat. His coat was black, dust clinging to its hem. His eyes, when he lifted his head, glowed faintly in the firelight. Too sharp, too knowing. "You shouldn't be here," the stranger said, voice low and rough. Eli's grip tightened on his revolver. "This is my cabin." The man's gaze flicked past him, to the chest. "You don't know what you've bought. Best thing you can do is leave it locked and ride far away." "Why?" Eli asked. The stranger's eyes burned like coals. "Because once that secret's opened, there ain't no putting it back." Before Eli could speak again, the man turned and vanished into the night, swallowed by the desert's endless dark. Eli closed the door, heart hammering. He looked at the chest, its strange carvings shifting in the firelight, and he knew, with cold certainty, that his life had just taken a turn he couldn't undo. The fire burned low in the cabin, throwing long shadows across the rough, hewn floorboards. Eli Mercer sat with his rifle across his lap, staring at the chest in the center of the room. The stranger's words echoed in his mind. Once that secret's opened, there ain't no putting it back. But what kind of man rode miles just to warn another about a box? And what was it about those carvings, those twisting, almost living marks, that made the air feel colder, heavier? Eli wasn't a superstitious man. He'd seen enough blood and war to know the only devils in this world were made of flesh and bone. Yet something about that chest gnawed at him like a wolf at a carcass. Sleep didn't come easy, and when it did, it brought dreams. Dark corridors, doors slamming shut, whispers in a language he didn't know but somehow understood. By dawn he'd made up his mind. If there was a secret here, he would face it head on. A sheriff's warning, before he pried open that chest I rode into town. He needed answers, straight ones, not half-whispered warnings. Sheriff Calloway was on the porch of his office, sipping coffee from a tin cup. He squinted at Eli as the horse trotted up. "You look like a man with questions," the sheriff said. "That I do," Eli replied. He dismounted, dusted off his hat. "About Cyrus Harlan. About that cabin." The sheriff's mustache twitched. "Figures. Ain't no one lasts a week out there before curiosity eats 'em alive." Eli leaned against the railing. "Folks say Harlan was digging. Found something. What was it?" The sheriff set his cup down. For a long while, he didn't answer. Then, in a low voice, "Harlan came into town one night, 10 years back, wild-eyed and raving. Said he'd struck it rich, but it weren't gold. Claimed he'd found a door in the earth, buried under Blackthorn Ridge. Said it wasn't natural. Said it whispered to him, called to him." Eli's skin prickled. "And the chest." Calloway's gaze darkened. "That's what he brought back. Hauled it down from that ridge, swearing it was the key to everything he'd found. Locked it up tight, said he had to keep it sealed. Week later he vanished. No tracks, no trail, just gone. And anyone who's tried tampering with that chest since, well, let's just say they didn't last long." "What happened to M?" Eli pressed. The sheriff's voice dropped to a growl. "You don't want to know. Best leave that cabin, Mercer. Sell the place back for whatever you can get. Don't go digging in graves best left shut." Thalai studied the man's face. Calloway wasn't lying. But he also wasn't telling everything. "I didn't buy that cabin just to walk away," Eli said flatly. The sheriff sighed, eyes tired. "Then God help you. Bandits on the trail on his way back." Eli wasn't alone. The trail twisted between scrub and boulders, and that's where they came. 3 riders with bandanas pulled over their faces, guns glinting in the morning sun. "Off the horse, stranger," the lead outlaw barked. "And keep your hands where we can see 'em." Eli's heart slowed, steady as a drum. He'd seen this dance before. He swung down from the saddle, careful, his rifle still slung but not ready. "What's this about?" Eli asked, voice calm. The outlaw sneered. "Word in town is you bought yourself the Harlan place. Means you got something we want. That chest." Eli's jaw tightened. "Funny. Everyone tells me to stay away from it, but you boys seem eager." The outlaw chuckled darkly. "We ain't afraid of old ghost stories. That chest is worth more than this whole sorry town. Now hand it over." Eli's hand brushed near his holster. "Reckon I can't do that." The desert wind whispered through the rocks. For a moment, the world held its breath. Then everything exploded. Eli's Colt cleared leather in a flash, thunder cracking as he fired. One outlaw dropped, clutching his chest. The second shot grazed another's shoulder, sending him reeling. The third bandit returned fire, a bullet whining past Eli's ear. Eli dove behind his horse, rolled, and fired again. Clean through the outlaw's hat brim, so close it made him yelp and bolt. Within seconds, the survivors turned tail, dust kicking up behind them as they rode hard for the horizon. Eli stood, chest heaving, smoke curling from his revolver. He holstered it slow, then wiped the sweat from his brow. Someone wanted that chest bad enough to kill for it. And that made him want to know why all the more. The opening, that evening, back at the cabin, Ali lit a lantern. The chest sat in the middle of the floor, silent, patient as though it had been waiting just for him. He fetched his knife, jammed it into the rusted lock. Metal screeched, wood splintered. He worked it back and forth until the lock snapped. The lid groaned as it lifted. Inside, beneath layers of rotting cloth, lay a bundle of old journals, leather-bound, the ink faded but legible. Symbols marked the covers, same as those carved on the chest. Eli pulled one free, opened it. The pages crawled with writing, Cyrus Harlan's hand, neat at first, then growing jagged, frantic. Sketches of tunnels, circles, doors cut into stone. Words repeated again and again. The door is alive. The door is hungry. Eli's stomach turned. Then he found the map. Folded between the pages, drawn in ink and blood, was a rough map of Blackthorn Ridge. At the center, marked with a black X, was something labeled only the mouth. As he stared, he swore the paper pulsed faintly beneath his fingertips, like the beat of a heart. He slammed the journal shut, chest tightening. Whatever Harlan had found, it wasn't just gold or silver. It was something far worse. The stranger returns. A knock came again. 3 raps, same as before. Eli rose, rifle in hand, and opened the door. The stranger stood there, taut, eyes burning like coals. His black coat hung heavy with dust. "You opened it," the stranger said flatly. Eli's jaw set. "I did. And I found Harlan's journals, his map. What's at Blackthorn Ridge?" The stranger's eyes flicked to the chest. Something that should have stayed buried. Harlan wasn't the first to find it. He won't be the last. That door, once it's opened, it spreads. Like rot. Like fire. Eli tightened his grip on the rifle. "And what are you?" "Some kind of preacher come to scare me off." The stranger's lips curved in something that wasn't a smile. "I'm what's left of the last fool who thought he could control it." For a heartbeat, Eli saw it. Just a flicker. Bones beneath the stranger's skin, shadows twisting like smoke around his frame. Then it was gone. "Burn those journals," the stranger said. "Bury that chest deep and leave. If you don't, the mouth will swallow more than you can imagine." Eli's pulse hammered. He'd come too far, fought too hard. He wasn't walking away now. "If this mouth is real," he said, "then I'll face it. Better than waiting for it to come for me." The stranger's gaze burned. "Then your blood's on your own hands." And just like before, he vanished into the dark. The mouth at dawn, Eli rode for Blackthorn Ridge. The land grew jagged, cruel, like the bones of giants scattered beneath the sun. He followed the map, winding through gullies until he found it, an outcrop of stone shaped almost like a skull, its hollow a gaping maw. The air grew colder the closer he rode. Birds circled high but never came near. Even the wind seemed to die. He dismounted, lantern in one hand, rifle in the other, and stepped inside. The tunnel was narrow, carved not by men but by something older. The walls pulsed faintly, like veins lit from within. The deeper he went, the more the whispers rose. 1,000 voices speaking in unison, promising, pleading, threatening. At last, he reached it. The mouth, a massive door of black stone, set into the earth itself. Carvings spiraled across its surface, same symbols as the chest, shifting when he looked too long. And in the center, a crack, thin, but pulsing, like it breathed. Eli's breath caught. This was what Harlan had found. This was what men had died to keep sealed. He raised the lantern higher. The crack widened, just a hair, and from within came a sound. Not wind, not earth, but a low, hungry growl. The lantern flickered. The journal's words burned in his mind. The door is alive. The door is hungry. At the last stand behind him, footsteps echoed. The outlaws. A half-dozen of them, guns drawn, eyes greedy. Their leader grinned wide. "Knew you'd come out here, stranger. Knew you'd lead us right to it." Eli's rifle came up. "You don't know what you're opening." The outlaw laughed. "Gold, power, whatever it is, we'll take it. Step aside." They advanced. The crack in the mouth pulsed wider, whispers hissing louder, hungry. Eli's choice was clear. He couldn't let them open it. The cavern erupted in gunfire. Thunder boomed, muzzle flashes lighting the stone. Eli dropped one, then another, but bullets ricocheted, searing past his shoulder. The lantern shattered, plunging the tunnel into flickering darkness. One outlaw reached the door, pressed his hand against it, and screamed. The crack split wider, light pouring through, and from within spilled shadows that weren't shadows. They coiled around him, pulling him into the stone as if the door itself devoured him. The others froze, terror in their eyes. Eli fired again, driving them back. He roared, "Get out!" They fled, stumbling into the night. Eli turned to the mouth. It pulsed, wider now, hungry. If it opened fully, it would never close. He had one chance. He lit the last stick of dynamite from his saddlebag, the flame hissing down the fuse. He held it tight, staring at the door. "Not today," he growled. He hurled it into the crack. The explosion shook the ridge, fire roaring through the tunnel. Stone collapsed, dust choking the air. The mouth shrieked, whether from the blast or from something deeper, Eli couldn't tell. Then silence. When the smoke cleared, the tunnel was sealed. The mouth buried beneath tons of rock. Epilogue. Weeks later, Dry Creek went about its business, whispering about the man who bought the cursed cabin and rode straight into legend. Eli Mercer stood on the porch of that crooked little cabin, the desert wind tugging at his hat. The chest was gone, burned to ash. The journals, too. Some secrets weren't meant to be kept. The town never knew what truly happened at Blackthorn Ridge, and Eli never spoke of it. But sometimes, when the night was too still, he thought he heard it again. The faintest whisper, beneath the earth, but the mouth was buried. But it was not gone, and Eli knew deep down that one day someone else would hear its call. Until then, he would keep watch.